What's up, everybody? Welcome to the stream. How's everybody doing? Today, we've got a special guest on the stream. We got Stephen Gaskell. How's it going, Steve?
Very well, thank you, Rogan.
Steve is the principal writer on Humankind, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the narrative elements and the storytelling in Humankind today. First, Steve is a little bit quiet. Let's turn him up. Let's turn him up. Thank you, everybody.
How do I sound now? Good?
It looks good on my end. Let me know how it is. Very quiet. Better. Okay, perfect. Let us know if anything else is off. Thank you. Okay, perfect. So we got Steve here. Just a bit of housekeeping first. We are live on Twitch and YouTube. Yes, we got YouTube working, so that's great. If we do ask a question that you didn't see in your chat, it's just probably because we pulled it from the chat that you're not in. So thank you guys for joining wherever you are. You can follow us to be notified whenever we do go live. If you're on Twitch, you can subscribe if you're on YouTube. That would be awesome. We do have quite a bit of content going out lately, so if you do that, you won't miss any of it. Another thing, at the end of the stream, we're going to be announcing this week's What If winners. YouTube working? No way. Yeah, exactly. So we're going to be announcing the What If winners for last week. If you don't know what If is, it's a meme contest that we currently have going. You can go make your meme at whatif.humankind.game. Every week we have a new theme. You make your meme according to the theme, and you can win some awesome prizes. All you got to do is post it on social media, #WhatIfHumankind, and that's all you got to do. And then you can win Humankind. You can win some amazing Sega prizes. You can win, Steve, you can win the entire Sega library. How juicy does that sound? Yeah, there you go. So thirdly, we have Steph, not actually in the studio right now, but in the chat. Cad09tails is in the chat. We'll be doing a question period near the end of the stream, or more sort of near the middle, actually. So if you do have questions, Steph is looking at them, so toss them in the chat anytime, and then we'll get to them once we get to the Q&A period. And then finally, Open Dev Scenario 3 coming at you tomorrow. So look out for that. It's going to be awesome. If you didn't get in any of the previous scenarios, we will be opening it up to more people. If you did get in, you just get it. All you got to do is update the game, and you got Scenario 3. Bingo bango. It's very easy. But I'm pretty sure that's it. Just remember to check your emails, check your junk mail. It might go there, and we'll be opening it up. Might want to turn up the volume just a little bit again. All right. Okay, perfect. So anyway, Steve, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah.
Good.
It's very hot in the UK, which is not normally a word you associate with the UK. We're in the middle of a heat wave. Hopefully we're at the tail end of this heat wave because we are dying for the rain.
I know. Yeah, it's been so hot over here in Paris. If you guys don't know, Steve is over in the UK. We're over in Paris right now, and there's a big heat wave going. I don't think I've slept more than 2 hours in the past week, so it's crazy.
Yeah, fortunately, I live pretty near the beach, so I'm going down cooling off quite often.
That's nice. That's real nice.
And despite my shaggy hair, I got to say the hairdressers in the UK are back open again after everything.
You know what? It's looking good. It's looking great. Yeah. So have you been in the UK the whole sort of quarantine period?
Yeah, it's been pretty strange. I mean, I think the whole studio's shifted pretty well to remote working. We're all pretty much at 100% efficiency. It's just very different, a lot of Teams chats and things.
Yeah.
Fortunately, recently there's been a new Battle Royale, a very colorful one, launched. So that's been helping in the evenings with the heat.
Fall Guys? You've been playing Fall Guys?
Fall Guys, yeah.
Nice. Yes, and so have I.
I've got a 7-year-old daughter, and she is loving that too.
Nice. That's awesome. That's good to hear. So getting right into it, Steve, can you talk a little bit about like what you actually do at Amplitude and more specifically on Humankind?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm on the small but perfectly formed narrative team under the legendary leadership of our narrative director, Jeff Spock. I've been at the studio about 8 years. That's 4 years as a freelancer and 4 years full time in house. I've worked on Endless Legend, Endless Space 2, so in the Endless Universe, creating quest lines, world building Bibles, comics, dialogue, cinematic scripts. And right now I'm principal writer on Humankind. So the focus is narrative content, especially like names and descriptions of things, very important to the game. But I help out wherever and whenever I'm needed. One thing about Amplitude, everyone speaks and writes disgustingly good English, despite largely being French.
Yep.
But they do occasionally make slip-ups, so I help out on that kind of side of things too.
Nice. That's where you come in. Awesome. So you're principal writer on Humankind. You worked within the Endless Universe as well. So how long did you say you've been at the studio for? 8 years?
8 years in total. Yeah.
Wow. That's
not quite the beginning, but not. I didn't work on Endless Space, the original game.
Right.
But I was on board from Endless
okay.
Legend.
Yeah. So how has working on Humankind sort of been different than what you've done on the Endless titles that you worked on?
Firstly, no Horatio, sadly.
Sadly. Very sad.
I don't know if all the viewers are familiar with Horatio. I don't know if I should explain who Horatio is, but maybe we can slip an Easter egg into the Humankind game. I'm not sure.
Oh, juicy. Yeah, that would be great.
But seriously, one of the first big differences that the Endless Universe is obviously a fictional creation, an in-house creation, and Humankind is all about real history. So one of the big changes has been that shift. Obviously, in the Endless Universe, we have a meticulously crafted universe. We're very careful about things. There's no inconsistencies at all. Well, maybe sometimes there are a few inconsistencies. It's very different with Humankind. Humankind, we have a team of historians working on the project too. I think the community met Benoit last week. He's full-time with us, but we also have other experts. So normally Jeff and myself are working fairly independently on stuff. We obviously talk with the creative direction, with the art team, and then we go away and work on our things.
Yeah.
This one is much more, it needs to be in line with the historical record. So it's kind of an additional layer. We're kind of more in touch with parts of the team more regularly. So we're making sure everything is good for the whole vision of the game. So we have a little bit more freedom maybe in the Endless Universe, making things up sometimes.
Right.
But, we're dealing with the whole of human history here. We've got 5,000 years of history, so we're not kind of short of material anyway.
Is that has that been a bit of a challenge for you, the shift into something a little more rooted in realism?
It involves more research, I'd say.
Yeah.
We have to, like I say, have to run things past the historians if we do come up with an idea. My historical knowledge is okay. It's not great. I might have an idea about how something happened in the past, and then Benoit will correct me, and I'll go away and massage the text for that.
Yeah.
The other big shift, obviously, is the way we're delivering narrative in Humankind, because for people familiar with our last games, we had faction-based storylines. So we had about 8 factions in Endless Legends and Endless Space 2, and then with expansions it went up to 10 or 12, and each of those factions had a kind of handcrafted storyline. So in Endless Legend they were kind of linear storylines, not much branching. In Endless Space 2 we went more branching, so you could get to different endpoints, but essentially you played that story, it was a fixed story, and then you moved on to the next faction, and through that way that kind of gave you the replayability. With Humankind, we can't do that. We have 60 cultures, and through the eras as you play through, you can have up to 1 million or plus combinations. We cannot write storylines even though we write fast, sometimes, we can't write that much content. So we've had to completely shift the way we do the storytelling. And so we wanted a more flexible narrative system,
Definitely.
one that worked with the player as they went through the game, choosing different cultures. So the storyline is more about the one that you play through as you go through the game, that's crafted by your own decisions. So you're making decisions both on the map in the kind of classical strategy sense, the way you're moving your armies, the battles you're having, the cities you're expanding, the territory you're gaining. And then you have these smaller events that kind of give flavor to your playthrough and hopefully respond to your playthrough. So we're kind of stepping back a little bit as storytellers, letting the player have that control. And so each storyline, each game should be unique, and each story, the next time you play, you'll play through a different story. That's the idea anyway.
Yeah. No, the player is sort of like making their own story a little bit,
Absolutely.
Because I know a lot of the game is about rewriting history and writing your own history. So I think that's like a really, really cool way of approaching it. A lot of people really do love that sort of storytelling in the endless games. The faction quests are awesome. How have you brought like what you've learned from those games into Humankind?
So one of the things I really love about our endless universe is we have this carefully crafted universe with a lot of fixed points, Auriga, what happened there, the Academy coming in Endless Space 2, these well kind of mature developed factions with kind of serious storylines sometimes, but what we don't shy away from the humor as well and the kind of absurdity of real life. And I think that's something that we've brought over to Humankind as much as we can. So in the Endless games, we had factions like the Sophons who were all about science and experimenting and sometimes, causing massive problems in their society.
Right.
Although Humankind, we're respecting the cultures, we also want to have these flavorful events that change the tone up sometimes as well. They add a little bit of levity. So enough of the time you're in a serious kind of mindset when you're playing these games, but that can deaden over time. So we want to inject a bit of humor sometimes. So we have stuff that's based on history, and because there's lots of funny stories in history, we're putting those in as much as we can as well.
Nice.
That's one thing we've learned. But generally, the dramatic rules of storytelling apply just as much in the longer form arcs that we had in the Endless games as they do to the smaller kind of events we have in Humankind. So we want good characters, we want interesting situations, we want mysteries, all those kind of things still apply. They're just kind of on a little bit of a smaller scale. The events.
Yeah, definitely. Could you talk a little bit about what are some of the more the narrative parts of Humankind? I know like there are the events that come up, there are civics, there are a couple different things that work toward this idea of writing your own history. What are some of the things that you have worked on?
So like I said, we want to make the events feel like they reflect your playthrough right now, that they're happening because of the choices you've made in the past and the sort of the situation you find yourself in at that time. And I should mention, when we brainstorm the events with creative direction, design, art, the historians, we needed to make sure that the events were kind of happening at the right scale. So what I mean by that is, you're inhabiting the leader of a civilization, of an empire. So we want the events to be things that would naturally come to your attention. So, if a horse has been stolen from a hamlet in a distant territory, that's not an event that is going to pop up. There's no way a leader is going to be interested in that.
Right.
However, if your entire poultry stock dying out, then maybe that's an event that could happen because it would come to your attention. It would be something you needed to make a choice on.
Yeah.
So the way we do it is the game is tracking dozens of variables all the time about the current and the past state of your game. Simple things like the number of cities, how many armies you have, the state of your armies, how many farmers' quarters a city has, whether you're at war. But it's also tracking much more subtle things too. Whether you're building a wonder, like you mentioned, the civics maybe you've opted for, your current ideological stance, are there rivers in the city, and most importantly, what choices you maybe made in previous events as well. So each event has a kind of a set of criteria that must be fulfilled in order for it to be in the running, so to speak. So it goes into a pool, and every so often there's a rhythm of events. We'll pull one of those events that's in the running and deliver it to the player. It's not guaranteed any given event will trigger, but it has a chance of happening if its criteria are met.
Nice.
And that involves a kind of balance. We want events to be special, to make the player feel that, wow, the game is really responding to, I sent these guys over here, they invaded this town, and now I'm getting this event, and like that makes sense.
Yeah.
But we don't want it to be too obscure that only once in a million playthroughs that event will pop. So we need to have that balance between repetition and obscurity.
Yeah, definitely. That's so cool. It's gonna be really cool. So it pulls from a lot of like the decisions that you make and what your situation is, and then just sort of decides what's gonna happen from there.
That's right. Yeah. So the other side to talk about obviously is the choices themselves and the consequences of those choices. And this is one of the most difficult things about the events, was we wanted the choices to make sense narratively. And obviously we've got multiple choices. You've got 3, sometimes I think 4 choices. They all needed to make sense, that this is something, a leader would consider doing. Right. That was sometimes a stretch when the credibility was pushed, so we had to go back and rework things. But you've also got the effects as well. So the gameplay effects, it's really important that we have balance in each of those choices, the effects for those choices, because if there's a very obvious positive choice for the player, they're going to be pulled towards that one. And maybe you'd have to be a real kind of RPG enthusiast to say, okay, I'm going to hurt myself here. I'm going to choose the bad choice just because I want to roleplay that. So we have to balance those choices. So sometimes they're all positive, maybe. That's the kind of a really good event. Everyone feels happy about that. That's probably like half of events. Sometimes there might be sort of gamble type events. So you might have a small cost, but you'll maybe sort out something. Like, for example, we've got an event called the Flooded Lands. There's a danger of flooding happening in your city. You happen to have a lot of river tiles. So you can kind of build dams in the narrative sense, and that will lessen your chance of having a disastrous effect. Or maybe you can leave it if you want. You can say, okay, I want to save that money. I'm going to take a gamble. You don't know what's going to happen. Maybe it'll be bad, but maybe you'll get away with it.
Right. Damn, that's awesome. So we'll get to a couple questions in chat right away, but I also wanted to ask you, where did the inspiration for a lot of these events come from? Is it mostly like historically accurate? Is it completely fictional? Is it kind of like a combination of both? Do you maybe want to be a little bit cheeky with it? I know that you were just talking about getting embracing some of the more comedic parts of history. So is there any criteria that went into actually deciding what these events were?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing touching on that is that the further back in history you go, the less source material you have. I mean, especially back in the ancient age, it's quite hard to dig up material. But by the time you're into the medieval and onwards, there's just tons and tons of sources. So maybe we had more kind of license further back, but everything still went through the historical kind of check, because the fundamentals of the game is that it's historically accurate as much as possible. We're giving Lego bricks, kind of these bricks. We're putting them together into novel ways, but the bricks themselves are kind of things that happened. And as the production went on, we built a library, a bigger and bigger library of historical references. And having obviously Benoit, I worked directly alongside Ben, so he was always there for me to toss a question over to him about something, and he would tell me, no, Steve, there weren't that many soldiers at that battle, or you're completely stupid about that armor thing. So it was really useful to have him there. One of the books I really liked using was this book. It had 365 days of the year, and for each of those days, it told you something that happened on that day. So it was a little concise vignette that would be a great source of inspiration. Because one of the things about history is, as an academic subject, it takes a big picture view, and it's trying to look at all the shifts and the currents that go into why something happened.
Yeah.
For the purpose of the events, we want to kind of hone that down, get it down to a moment, get it down to something kind of human and relatable that the player can feel as a leader. This is something that we brought to them. It gives them color. It gives them investment in the story and things. So that was really useful. One thing along those lines was also making sure we had diversity. So if we were using too many sources from a kind of a Western point of view, which is a danger, throughout the project, we had to be aware of. It was harder finding sources from maybe more distant cultures, geographically and in terms of time. But that was something we wanted to make sure we were doing well. So distilling down these monumental kind of shifts in history to things, to small moments that you could kind of present as a very colorful event with a good piece of artwork in a very human way. I mean, one example recently, Boris Johnson, for example, with the COVID situation, he ended up going into hospital. He was, quite seriously ill. And obviously that would make a perfect event for our game, where you as the leader were suddenly in hospital. You would have a very big say, big personal stake in how you wanted to do something because you've been affected personally. That was the kind of thing we wanted to do all the time with the events. The game is kind of, the scale of the game is pulled back a lot of the time. You're looking down at a map, but the events were a chance to personalize things, bring in human emotions, and make you think a little bit more about, what was going on in your civilization, what was going on in your empire. Play it in a certain way if you wanted to play it in that more kind of emotive human way.
Definitely. I know you mentioned that you've worked with Benoit on a lot of this, and he was really good to have around when you had a question. I know I've been using him a lot. We and him have been working on the culture cards together, and I feel like I've learned a ton about history. And I was wondering if that was the case for you. Were you always super into history, or did you learn a lot during this process?
It's been, obviously, as a writer, it's definitely something we draw on in general as writers. But the kind of, history is so big. It spans so much time, so many stories. It's hard to be, even moderately informed about, a culture. We have 60 cultures in the game. I'm coming from a point of view of knowing almost nothing, and so Benoit is a fountain of knowledge for that, and just directing me to the right place often as well.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So I think we'll take a couple questions from chat. I have some here. Hellshake Narco says, will we have shared/global narrative events in the game?
Well, that was one thing we had to be careful with, that an event happening to you as a player didn't unfairly affect someone else directly. So the events themselves are tailored to your empire. I believe we have some systems where wider things can happen, but I wouldn't want to say categorically, and the designers would be more informed about that.
Right. So will Georgi Sutsev, I'm so sorry if I messed that up. Will the story involve invasions of other countries or cultures, conquering or dominating to the story of the current culture?
You might get events where the fact you are at war will have a bearing on the event that pops. Again, we need that flexibility of the system, so we're not saying if your culture goes together with this exact culture, this event will pop. It's more generalized than that. But that's definitely something we're looking at.
Original 20th? No, original 29th, sorry. Will there be a lot of story or lore about independent peoples?
There and there's a lot of independent people in the game. So in terms of what we have for each one is relatively small. The stories that come out with those are kind of more organic through the gameplay, through the systems that the independent people are involved with. We do have a few events that involve independent people, and the way you might have interacted with them, some civics you might have chosen that involve them.
Okay. From the same person, how many events are you aiming to add in total for launch?
We have a lot. We're definitely in the hundreds. A lot of events have second chapters. Sometimes you kind of get a hint that there will be a second chapter to an event. Sometimes you won't, and it will just kind of pop as a nice surprise, or sometimes a nasty surprise. We're looking at events that may not have an immediate second chapter, but may come back to you later on, in a couple of eras' time, because some shifts in society take a long time to kind of bubble through to a more kind of noticeable effect.
Right.
I think those ones are going to be really cool, and we tried to do, as we went on and we got a better idea of what were the strengths of the event system, we were trying to do more of those as well. So sorry, I've lost my thread, but yeah.
All right, lots and lots. It's going to take you a long time to get to all of them.
I was going to say, yeah, the civics as well. The civics all pop with an event as well. There's triggers basically that lead to civics, and those triggers are presented as an event as well.
Yeah, definitely. Waycott asks, I understood there won't be any great persons in Humankind, of course, because we're going with the avatars. And they're curious to know if there will be in game some historical events quoting some texts or dialogue based on facts from known historical great people.
We may have a few kind of odd lines here and there that are almost pulled exactly word for word from quotes and things.
Yeah.
But like I said, all the events are drawn from real history. So hopefully, you will be able to see, if you know about something and you see this event, you'll know, okay, they're playing off that event. Hopefully one of the choices will kind of be down the route that kind of what actually transpired, but a couple of the other choices obviously will be a kind of counter narrative to the real history. So that's really cool. If we have time, we would like to, be more explicit about those links if we can. But I'm sure, together with the community, those kind of links will be, ferreted out and talked about and things, and will probably be criticized on some things. And I'm sure it will be valid criticism, and that will be great to see. But yeah, every event is based on something that happened. Sometimes it's more loosely inspired. Like I said, especially if you go further back, we're almost into the territory of myths and legends to some extent.
Cool. Yeah. Original 29th kind of asks a question along those lines. If you base the events on real history, how much artistic freedom will you take in making sort of like a more gamey perspective on them?
Well, like I said, with the choices, like I said, one of the most difficult things was the balancing of the effects. So, sometimes I would write an event, I would have an idea for the effects, and then based on the narrative more than the design. And when one of the designers would say, Steve, this is clearly unbalanced, it's not fair, you need to get rid of this would be more suitable. Right. And then I had to retroactively kind of think about the narrative. That was sort of spinning different plates and making sure they didn't break was definitely one of the challenges. So you will see some things that maybe stretch your credibility a little bit to get the design working, but we've done our best to make it feel credible, and to let the player role play the kind of leader they are. And that
Yeah.
I won't talk about that too much, but that filters into other areas of the game where we have
Yeah.
that personification of the leader, of the avatar.
Definitely. Danky Kang asks, do some words in the events change depending on which culture you are? Like maybe when they're referencing their emblematic unit or something like that?
Yep. So obviously the city names where the event happens will be changed. I think sometimes you'll see different cultural names. Not sure about emblematic units or not. Probably in a few events we have that. But yeah, the idea is to really make it feel, tailored to your game.
Yeah. Kublin01 asks, so are natural disasters possible?
Again, they're kind of in the event system. Would be more localized thing, like the flood I mentioned.
Right.
Systematically, that's more of a wider game design. I'm not sure we've got to the point where we're talking about those things, so I couldn't say on that for now.
Cool. What's the frequency of events appearing? Is there a set frequency? I know you talked about events being based off what actually happens and what you decide. So is it depending solely on that, or every couple turns is it kind of just like, oh, it's time for an event?
There's no strict fast rules. There's a whole series of kind of heuristics that go into deciding whether it's time for an event. I think on average it's maybe roughly every 8 to 10 turns, maybe a little more. It kind of depends what's going on in your civilization as well. Sometimes you might see one event pop, and then 2 turns later you might see another event pop. It's something we don't want to overwhelm the player with when they're dealing with a lot of other things. It's an extra layer on a traditional kind of strategy game.
Yeah.
But that's something we really want feedback on as well, and we're kind of looking for that feedback when it comes to the kind of wider beta that we'll probably be doing as we go ahead.
Yeah. Original 29th again with the hard hitters. Nice. This is something we can't talk too much about, but I'll throw it out there to you. I heard there's an encyclopedia coming to the game. Will there be any focus with storytelling storytelling style information about histories in there?
I can't say too much about that, I'm afraid. I know we have an encyclopedia. I think I can say that much.
Yeah.
But, that is something you have to just wait and see, I'm afraid.
Nice. Good teasing. You belong in the marketing team. Hellshake Narco. Just a couple more. Do we have narrative event choices for the end of the game to definely? Is that what it means? Do we have narrative event choice for the end of the game to definely shape our culture? Sorry.
Well, the big fame mechanic is something that that happens throughout the game. You're accruing fame, right from the beginning. So, one of the foundations of the game is it's the journey, not the destination. So we want you to be accruing this fame as you go through the game. Obviously, the events sometimes tie more directly into that, or they'll help you achieve that fame. We don't have explicit end of the game events. Sometimes we want events to have kind of bigger consequences perhaps at certain times. So you might see events that have wider empire-wide consequences.
Yeah.
And I think they'll probably be more likely to happen at the end of the game, because when you're at the beginning of the game, often you have 1 or 2 cities, so later on there might be some things you might want to pause a little bit more about when you're doing your event. You're getting to that end point where your final score is going to be tallied. So yeah, that's something to bear in mind.
Yeah, totally. And I think the final one, Scholastico, awesome name. Just a follow-up to the global events question. How much would global systems in the game, like war or global trade, affect the individual events of your empire?
So again, we're largely looking at your empire. So obviously your empire takes part in a global trade system. It takes part in alliances and diplomacy on a global scale. But we'll be looking at your situation in your empire for the events that trigger to you. So it's more indirect. It's not so direct, but you should feel it as part of the wider experience, the wider atmosphere of the game at that point.
Right. Definitely. Cool. Well, I think that's pretty much it from the chat questions. Thanks everybody for your questions. That was awesome. And thanks Steve for all those wonderful answers.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Do you have anything else to add? Anything you want to shout out?
Sure. I'd just like to say thank you to the community. Your energy and passion is awesome, and every day I'm checking on Reddit and Games Together platforms and elsewhere to kind of see your take on things. It's really encouraging. It really gives us a boost. I don't know how much we've talked about things that go on after the initial release, Rogan.
Just a little bit. Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah.
So expansions are planned. I hope that's not a big surprise. All our games have done expansions. So I'm very curious about what you think of the events you've seen, ways to improve them. We're always seeking critical feedback. We'd love to have your thoughts on things, because those later expansions, we're working on them now, so we can put your thoughts into action on that. Other than that, I'd just like to say stay safe and keep playing.
Awesome. One final thing I wanted to ask you is more about OpenDev. So we're doing OpenDev right now, and of course we're getting a ton of feedback thrown our way. Is there anything in particular that you're looking for to get feedback on in Humankind? Is it pretty much everything? Is it like the frequency of the events that pop up? Is it what the events actually are? Or are you just kind of like, give us feedback on anything, it's all good?
Yeah, the latter really. I mean, I know the open dev scenarios have been planned quite deliberately with the design teams. The current ones at the moment are looking very much at the combat situation. The first one was looking about early game and early city building and things. Being on the writing team, it's sort of an area of the game or of the game development that touches a lot of different things. So, the writing can sometimes change your perception of a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So I really like feedback on, the tooltips, even on things. How cluttered is the screen? Does it need less? Do you want more information? Are you confused at times? Not just, this historical detail is confused, or this story event doesn't make sense. That's great too, but everything is valid.
Absolutely.
And we're sponges here. We want to soak it up. We want to improve everything as much as we can. So
yeah,
all feedback is good.
I know here at Amplitude, we really have a heavy focus on like working with you guys, the community, on just making the best possible game that we can make. And I know with Scenario 3 coming out, a lot more people are going to be playing it, and we're going to be getting a lot more feedback. And I just want to stress that we're really looking at this feedback, and we really want to take it and improve the game as much as we can. So we appreciate all of you guys playing. We appreciate the feedback to come. So look out on your emails for some more invites if you haven't already. And if you already got an invite, happy playing, starting tomorrow. So look out for that. So Steve, we're going to announce the What If winners for this week.
Awesome.
Today. So we'll go here. This week's theme, it was social. So here are the winners. So there are 4 different categories, everybody. We got originality, adherence to theme, dev crush, and then we got the overall winner. So let's just get right into it. For originality, we got Sushi Panda with this one. Congrats, Sushi Panda. Great name. There you go. A lot of these, so for the themes, they're very sort of broad on purpose. So we do get, broad spectrum of memes. So a lot of these were about social media, some were about social distancing, some were about being social. It's great. So that was originality. Good for you, Sushi Panda. We'll be in touch. Adherence to theme was Subject Hawk. Personally, this was one of my favorites. Great job, Subject Hawk. By the way, I'll be reaching out to everybody tomorrow afternoon. So if you won, look out. Make sure your DMs are open so we can work out how to get your prize. Dev Crush is Magdaloth. Great job out there. The spaceman in the middle of space, social distancing winner. Well, you know what? You're also a what if winner, so there you go. And then finally, the grand winner is Dark Eye Jolly, social distancing in the 1600s. Pretty good. We really like this one over here. So keep them coming, everybody. You can win. All of these people just won a copy of Humankind. Grand winner won a copy of Humankind and Humankind for a friend, plus the entire Endless collection. So that's what you could win. Yeah, great. And then, so next week's theme, we'll announce it right here, right now, so you can just go get to making your memes. Next week's theme is power. Power. So whatever that means to you, make a meme out of it, and we'll see what you got. And that's pretty much it. Steve, thank you so much again for joining us. I know you're a busy guy back over in the UK. I hope you stay safe over where you are, and hope the fam stays safe as well.
Yeah, the biggest danger is the heat wave right now. So
oh yeah,
praying for rain.
It's treacherous. Just go stand out there if it's like pouring. I know I'm
Thanks
gonna
for
do that.
having me.
No worries at all. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for your questions. You can follow us over on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Humankind Game. And if you're not following the Twitch channel, or if you're on YouTube, if you're not subscribed, consider doing so. We put out a lot of good content, and we stream every week, Wednesday and Thursday. Tomorrow we will be back streaming some Scenario 3 gameplay. It'll be me, it'll be Steph, Cat and Ninetails, who you've seen in chat, and it'll also be Bo, who is our community developer over here. So that's going to be a fun one. Third scenario, we'll see how that goes. Everybody, again, I can't stress this enough, be on the lookout for your emails. They'll go out tomorrow. So amazing. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great one.
Take care.